They were bold, beautiful, and unafraid to live by their own rules. Behind the rhinestones, guitars, and southern charm, some of country music's most iconic women had scandalous secrets and fiery love lives that shocked even Nashville. In this video, we're pulling back the curtain on the 20 most promiscuous women of old country music. Get ready for untold stories, messy affairs, and the real truth behind country queens who couldn't be tamed. This is the side of country music you were never supposed to hear. Number 20, Margot Smith. When people think about provocative women in country music, Margot Smith may not be the first name that comes to their minds, but it's fascinating how she's portrayed as a very promiscuous person. Margot Smith was born in 1942 and started music from a very young age. Her early career was built on soft, sweet vocals and traditional themes. Songs like There I Said It and Take My Breath Away showed off her polished soprano and safe, love-centered lyrics. Everything went on well until 1979, when things began to change. At a time when country music frowned on overt female sexuality, especially when it came from older women, Margot stunned fans and even stunned critics with a bold image makeover. She put away the conservative blouses and cut her hair so low. It was obvious she wanted to rebel. She wore clingy dresses to complement her performance. She openly began singing songs like Still a Woman, which talked about aging, desire, and the longing for physical connection after many years of marriage. The line, "Still a woman who needs a little love sometimes," stirred immediate controversy. People began saying their points and opinions. This move drew whispers in the industry. Critics questioned her motives, with some labeling it desperate and others calling it brave. However, what Margot was looking for was something beyond their praises and approval. She wanted to reclaim her childhood, but nobody could see that. She said what many women were too afraid to say. She lived her life proving that just because a woman is older, it doesn't mean she's invisible, emotionless, or sexless. Margot was labeled promiscuous by the public, but it was just their perception. There's nothing real about it. Her bold defiance of ageism and sexual suppression is what put her on the list of promiscuous people. She didn't have a string of public affairs, but she dared to sing about desire in a way that shattered country music's glass ceiling for mature women. Number 19, Barbara Mandrell. Barbara Mandrell, known as the polished face of country pop in the late 1970s and early 80s, is a multi-instrumentalist, a TV darling, and a vocal powerhouse. However, beneath the sequined dresses and award show poise was a woman who played dangerously close to the edge of country music's moral compass. Barbara was not as immoral as the tabloids wanted. There was no record of her having affairs or other immoral acts, but her stage personality betrayed her. She was very sensual on stage with bodycon dresses, long lashes, and seductive poses. Barbara walked the fine line between classy and sexy. Her hit Sleeping Single in a Double Bed was highly suggestive, hinting at loneliness, longing, and implied intimacy. The song went really viral, but many people still talked down to it. What made her different was her ability to package seduction in a way that seemed like morality and modesty. It seemed unbelievably wholesome. She's known to be the churchy beauty queen who knows how to slay in a subtle way. She was a master of showbiz subtlety, giving audiences just enough to imagine, but never enough to accuse. Many of her performances felt like a nod and a wink, saying, "Yes, I know exactly what I'm doing." Her image was further amplified by her family-friendly variety show, Barbara Mandrell and the Mandrell Sisters, which balanced down home charm with sparkling flirty costumes and romantic ballads. Barbara is listed here because she doesn't need scandal to be labeled as promiscuous. Her nature, stage performances, and even conversations did the job. Number 18, Barbara Fairchild. It is safe to call Barbara the soft voice that knew way too much. She stood beneath the stage lights with a childlike face and a voice as gentle as a lullaby. When Barbara Fairchild sang the Teddy Bear song, it sounded like she was wishing to be a toy and also begging to escape a woman's pain. The crowd adored her innocence, but there was something beyond that in her eyes, something that suggested that she knew a lot more about heartbreak, temptation, and disappointment than the ones she released through her lyrics. Barbara's life is not the kind that you would easily understand. Her life was layered in mystery. You wouldn't understand what she's up to, where she is headed, or even her intentions behind her actions. Rumors began to spread like a southern wind. She kept getting late-night calls, secret rendezvous, and love letters from men who weren't hers to love. She never confirmed them because she didn't have to in the first place. Her eyes conveyed what her words and lyrics couldn't. They carried the ache of a woman who had walked through the fire and came out smelling really sweet but scared. In many of her interviews, she smiled politely, dodging questions with grace. However, the truth leaked through one line at a time and one stage whisper at a time. There was always an ache beneath the satin blouse, a storm beneath the honeyed vocals. When the spotlight faded, Barbara was alone again, sipping on regret and rewriting love stories that never quite made it to forever. With the nature of her voice, Barbara didn't even need to shout. She whispered her confessions, as raw and deep as they were, and the world listened. Number 17, Patsy Cline. Patsy Cline is the woman who would storm into a room and effortlessly command attention. She had the mouth of a sailor and the heart of a poet, and when she laughed, it echoed like gospel. Her lipstick was always loud, her heels always high, and her presence always unmistakable. Men loved her. Women watched her with curiosity and admiration. When she's there, it shows that she's there. She would lean over the jukebox in some smoky Nashville bar, drop a coin in, and belt out the harmony to her own hit like she owned the place. When Patsy sang Crazy, it wasn't just a torch song. Patsy was a mirror of the chaos in her soul. She had lovers, and some of them stayed while most didn't, and she didn't even beg them to. Pasty would light a cigarette, take a drag, and laugh at the mess she left behind, disregarding what people thought or spoke about her, not because it didn't hurt, but because vulnerability was her weapon, and she wielded it like a queen. She could use vulnerability to get whatever it was that she wanted for herself. It was her strategy for manipulation. Patsy married, strayed, and chased love like a hymn, and even broke people's hearts like a hurricane. Church ladies clutched their pearls. However, behind closed doors, they played her records until midnight, crying into their wine glasses. Patsy wasn't exactly promiscuous. She was just living her life and living it in a world that tried to cage women in silence and shame. She dared to be loud, bruised, beautiful, and unforgettable. Number 16, Billie Jo Spears. The lights dimmed and a hush fell. Then came that first line, "Spread your arms, hold me close." The crowd leaned in, men clenching beers, women biting their lips. Billie Jo Spears sang love songs that taught deep lessons. Every lyric was a door that slightly cracked, letting listeners peek inside a room they weren't supposed to see. Her voice was gravel and honey. It was melodious, but the songs she sang would prick you so hard because they seemed quite judgmental. She was just too wise and too bold to be ignored. She sang "Blanket on the Ground." This song was an invitation to deep intimacy. Billie Jo has a unique way of capturing the minds of people and drawing them deeply through her sounds. This song, for one, invited people to real married intimacy. She didn't ask permission to feel. She reminded people that desire didn't fade with youth or rings. They whispered so much about her backstage. It was about the way she wore dresses that clung too tightly, her habit of locking eyes a little too long with the wrong kind of man. Some said she had a lover in every town her tour bus stopped. Others said that she was just tired of pretending that a woman's body stopped wanting after 30. She wanted to explore, and that she did. Billie didn't correct them or even say anything to defend herself about it. She simply allowed the rumors to play backup vocals to her truth. When she closed her eyes and leaned into that microphone, it didn't matter who judged her. She had already tasted what they only fantasized about. Number 15, Bobbie Gentry. Roberta Lee Streeter was born on the 27th of July, 1942, near Woodland in Chickasaw County, Mississippi, USA. Widely known as Bobbie Gentry, she appeared one summer day, hips swaying in a black pencil skirt, guitar slung across her shoulder like a rifle. Her voice was velvet dipped in molasses, and her face was part Southern belle and part warning sign. Her song, Ode to Billie Jo, would leave you wondering. It didn't even need to explain much with the lyrics, just a few words that would leave you in awe and wonderment. Bobbie Gentry didn't perform like other singers. She haunted instead. Every single line she sang would make you lean even closer, like you might hear a secret she wasn't supposed to tell. She never blinked for too long and never smiled too widely. It's just so difficult for you to predict her. There was always something withheld, which is an unspoken dare behind her smoky eyes. The press asked who Billie Jo was, and she simply shrugged. Fans were wondering and even had to ask if the song was true. She changed the subject. Meanwhile, men followed her backstage like moths to flame, hoping that she would write them into her next mystery. When they left her room, they never said a word. No one even dared to. Her songs dripped with sensuality, not just in words, but in how she held silence. Fancy was a confession dressed up as triumph. She sang it like a woman who had done things that no preacher's daughter should ever admit to and survived through it. Then one day, she suddenly vanished. There was no farewell tour and no tabloid scandal. It was just silence, and nobody heard anything more from her. Bobbie didn't even need to explain. She was the kind of woman who could burn down a house with a stare, just a stare, and she would leave the ashes singing joyfully. Number 14, Dottie West. Dottie was one that we would safely call an epitome of beauty. She was completely stunning, literally everything about her. She didn't just walk onto the stage, she shimmered there, in sequins that caught every light, with her strawberry blonde hair that fell like a golden dare. She sang about love, like someone who had broken all the rules and then wrote songs to justify it. When she sang A Lesson in Leavin', people thought it was fiction, but it wasn't. You could feel the echo of slammed doors, hot tears, and lipstick left on collars. She wasn't the kind of woman that you could easily forget. Men remembered her because she never begged to be loved. She expected to be loved, and it's impossible not to love her. Her nature would compel you to. When they couldn't handle that kind of heat, she lit a match and watched them burn from a distance. There were whispers about her, as usual. Too many marriages, too many lovers, too many nights when her car was seen parked outside someone else's home. However, she never answered anyone. She wore her heart on her sleeve and her freedom on her hips. Number 13, Jeannie C. Riley.
Who had a teenage daughter who attended Harper Valley Junior High.
Before she opened her mouth, the room already judged her. She's the one people were always ready to troll. She stepped out in boots and a miniskirt so short that it made the front pew sweat. Hair teased high, eyes lined like a movie star, Jeannie C. Riley looked just like trouble wrapped in a solemn hymn. Then came the clear, fierce voice dipped in defiance. Harper Valley PTA is a song by Jenny. To her, it wasn't just a song. It was rather a sermon, a slap, a revolution. She called out the hypocrisy, the quiet affairs, the lipstick on coffee mugs, and the secrets stuffed behind church bulletins. She did it smiling. She was incredibly audacious and showed no fear of anything. She could call out anything just the way it is and not have any regrets whatsoever. That song made her a star overnight, but it also made her a target. People noticed her dressing too loudly, always in a very seductive manner, and they also found her to be very vulgar. They tried to oppose her, saying that she had no right to sing truth like that in a body like that. However, Jeannie didn't even blink or dare to flinch. While they whispered about her hemlines, she kept climbing the charts and hotel balconies too. Her phone buzzed at night with calls she wouldn't name. Her name danced in backroom gossip and fan letters that read like confessionals. Preachers preached about her. Young girls copied her. Wives watched her warily, wondering if their husbands were humming her tune too sweetly. Number 12, Jessi Colter. Jessi Colter had a presence about her that made a room serene whenever she walked in, like the kind of woman who had heard every lie and decided to keep her own truths tucked behind a smirk, regardless of how pushing it is to spill out what truth is. She was not the kind to go out of her way to get attention. Jessi effortlessly commanded attention. Her aura made people even begin to fear her because they felt threatened by her presence. They thought she knew everything, and any slight mistake could lead to her exposing a lot. Her voice didn't sound like that of a woman looking for love, but like one daring you to survive hers. When she stood beside the outlaw men, Jennings, Nelson, and Cash, she didn't even shrink. She shimmered against all odds. Jessi's eyes always looked like they had just wiped away tears or laughter. You were never quite sure. She was never predictable, like never ever. Men would follow her like moths. Some tried to tame her if they could, while others wanted to save her, but most of them just wrote songs about her when she walked away because they couldn't get through to her. She had the face of a saint and the heart of a wildfire. Behind closed doors, there were stories, nights that blurred, looks that lingered. But Jessi never confirmed, never denied. She simply stood on stage, soft at the edges, fierce at the core, and dared the world to sing back. Number 11, Tammy Wynette. Tammy Wynette was known as the first lady of country music. When she sang Stand By Your Man, it sounded like advice. Yes, it was. However, beyond the advice, it was Tammy confessing, and somewhere in that chorus was a story that she never fully told. Tammy's rebellion was that she loved hard. She clung to men that didn't stay, Men didn't deserve her softness, and she turned the bruises into ballads. Her voice cracked from memories of hurts, grief, and pain. It was the sound of a woman still waiting for the apology that never came. She married too often, forgave too quickly, and even disappeared into arms that knew how to hold but not how to keep. They said she cried easily, but no one ever asked why. No one cared about her that much. Even the men she followed weren't that responsible. Backstage, Tammy would light a cigarette with shaking hands and laugh too loudly at things that weren't even funny. And somewhere in that laugh was a woman who had once believed every love song she ever sang, and a woman who had started to stop because she was already fed up. Number 10, Connie Smith. Connie Smith is that special artist who sang like heaven lived in her throat. She's the only one you can never go wrong by calling her voice perfect, because it actually is. She had the kind of voice that made grown men cry and mothers clutch their chests. However, behind that angelic tone was a woman whose life was messier, stormier, and far more human than her polished records let on. She married young, divorced young, and carried the weight of disappointment like a second skin. She didn't parade lovers, but she didn't hide the fact that love had cut her deeply more than once. By the time she met Marty Stewart, decades her junior and once just a boy backstage in awe of her, the world had already moved on from her story, but Marty hadn't. When he declared as a teenager that he would one day marry her, everyone laughed except Connie, because it wasn't funny to her at all. So many years later, he did, and it wasn't a scandal. He did it, and it shocked the world. It was a plot twist that made people revisit her songs, searching for signs. She never played the temptress, but somehow, her quiet beauty and inner sadness made her very irresistible. You don't even have to flaunt skin to make men ache. She proved it. She proved that sometimes all it takes is a voice that sounds like forgiveness and eyes that remember too much. Number 9, Crystal Gayle. The country music singer, Crystal Gayle, was also an exceptionally talented artist. She didn't even need to be loud. She simply walked in with hair that touched the floor and a voice that touched something much deeper than the surface. Her songs were soft, but they stuck to your ribs. Talking in Your Sleep was her first song, and it wasn't just a hit. It was a subtle, sultry whisper that stirred suspicions and tempted thoughts. She was Loretta Lynn's younger sister, but she didn't follow in Loretta's footsteps. She carved for herself a smoother and wilder path. Where Loretta was fire, Crystal was velvet. And where Loretta shouted, Crystal seduced. Her music drifted between country and pop, much like her image, which was a gentle blend of elegance and allure. She never courted controversy publicly. There were no screaming headlines about her, no televised affairs too, and that was because she didn't need them. Her presence alone sparked curiosity. The way she held a note and the blend in her phrase all felt really personal and intimate, like she was singing to someone she shouldn't be thinking about. Rumors began to spread and stories of industry men drawn to her, of nights after shows where glances lingered too long. Nothing has ever been proven, and nothing has ever been denied. Her power lay in her mysterious nature. She didn't confirm the fantasy, but she didn't break the spell either. When she turned her head on the stage, letting all that hair cascade like a curtain, it was as if she was saying goodbye to something you never got to touch. Number 8, Wanda Jackson. In the 1950s, when women still sang about being good, Wanda sang about being wanted. Her voice cracked with fire, and her hips swayed like temptation. She wore fringe, tight skirts, and a wink that made Southern mothers nervous. She even toured with Elvis Presley, and for some time, they were in a relationship. He called her the female Elvis, but she wasn't anybody's mirror. She was Wanda. One of her songs, Let's Have a Party, is a song that is quite bold, rowdy, and unladylike, and Wanda was really proud of it. Offstage, the rumors followed her like stage lights. Too many late-night gigs and too many glances exchanged with bandmates and fans. However, Wanda never thought it wise to defend herself. She didn't even need to. Her laugh said she knew things you didn't, and her eyes dared you to ask if you were even courageous enough to do so. She was the original bad girl of country music before it was ever allowed. Number 7, Tanya Tucker.
He got down out of the cattle truck in the Amarillo night.
Tanya was only 13 years old when she sang Delta Dawn. She was just a girl, but her voice carried the ache of a woman who had already seen too much for her age. At the age of 15, Tanya Tucker wasn't a rising star, and she was a firework exploding across Nashville's conservative skyline. She dated Glenn Campbell when she was barely out of her teens, a romance that was riddled with tabloids, tantrums, and broken glass. The world gasped, but she didn't even care, and while others tiptoed around their image, Tanya kicked the door down and asked for another round. Her lyrics, too, were extremely powerful. Would You Lay With Me in a Field of Stone was one intense and wild song that she wrote and sang. On stage, she was leather and lace, cowboy boots and daring curves. She moved like she belonged somewhere wilder than country radio could contain. Tanya didn't play the good girl, and she didn't apologize for it. She lived the songs others were too afraid to sing. Number 6, Loretta Lynn. Loretta Lynn was born in 1932 in the Kentucky Hills. She was given out in marriage at the age of 15 and had 4 kids before she stepped into a recording studio. Her songs consist of raw confessions. She didn't beat around the bush with the message that she passed. She dove straight into them. In 1996, she sang Don't Come Home A-Drinkin', then came Fist City and The Pill. The Pill is that one music that almost got her locked up because she sang about abortion and birth control. Loretta turned the everyday mess of womanhood, cheating husbands, tired wives, and fierce love into chart-topping songs. She wasn't promiscuous per se, but she sang like a woman who knew the fire of desire and the sting of betrayal. Her marriage to Doolittle Lynn was highly chaotic. He was mean, emotionally unintelligent, and extremely bad for someone who was called a husband. However, in it all, Loretta stayed unapologetically bold. She didn't seduce with scandal as most people would think. She seduced with deep honesty. In a time when women were expected to be silent, Loretta Lynn made country music listen. Number 5, Reba McEntire. Reba entered the spotlight in the late 70s with her red curls bouncing, voice full of thunder. She wasn't just a singer, she was extremely theatrical. Her heartbreak anthems, Whoever's in New England, For My Broken Heart, were quite deep and heart-touching. Reba didn't shock people with random news about affairs. She wasn't modest per se, but she didn't see the need to do that. She was stunned with emotion. Her songs told stories of infidelity, desperation, and lonely hotel rooms, all wrapped in perfect harmony. In 1994, Reba tackled HIV stigma with She Thinks His Name Was John, a brave move for country music. Offstage, her life mirrored the themes she sang. After 20 years, her divorce from Narvel Blackstock shocked fans. Rumors are even circulated as usual. On her own part, she never clarified. Instead, she smiled, performed, and built a legacy too big for gossip to shrink. Reba's power was in how she made pain look powerful and womanhood look unstoppable. Number 4, Lynn Anderson. With Rose Garden in 1917, Lynn Anderson didn't just sing. Beyond the lyrics, she sparkled exceptionally. Her image was high glamour, and her voice couldn't be boxed in. She married songwriter Glenn Sutton, and her personal life became stormy. After their split, whispers of erratic behavior and passionate affairs followed her. She faced arrests in the 1980s and early thousands, painting a picture of a woman who was adored and unraveling. On stage, she looked elegant. However, offstage, she was fire in a glass frame, and her songs were the kind of songs that hinted at a woman who was aching for more freedom, passion, and escape. She wasn't Nashville's good girl, and she didn't care to be. Lynn Anderson sang the pretty notes, but lived a life that never asked to be forgiven for its edges. Number 3, June Carter Cash. Long before she was Mrs. Johnny Cash, June Carter was already popular. June was born into the iconic Carter family. She had stage presence, wit, and eyes that saw straight through people. Her onstage chemistry with Johnny Cash wasn't just a performance. It was a real thing, but they didn't want to present it to the world raw. To them, it's almost sacred and dangerous. When he finally proposed to her, they had already spent years orbiting each other, each marriage and mistake deepening their bond. June had been married twice before Johnny even thought of marrying, and though she wore laughter like perfume, her lyrics and diaries hinted at shadows. It was about temptation, loneliness, and desire. She didn't flaunt sexuality. She embodied it with a smile too knowing, a heart too open, and a voice that sounded like both a prayer and a dare. Number 2, Kitty Wells. In 1952, Kitty Wells changed everything with It Wasn't God Who Made Honky Tonk Angels. At a time when women in country music were expected to harmonize, she grabbed the mic and spoke for the silenced. She dressed modestly, avoided scandal, and rarely made public waves. However, her songs were daggers wrapped in lace. She sang of infidelity, of women blamed and shamed, of truth buried beneath tradition. There were no public affairs, no tabloid drama. Nonetheless, Kitty's rebellion wasn't in her lifestyle. It was right in her blood and even in her lyrics, and in the courage that it took to tell the world, it's not always the woman's fault. Her quiet voice made the loudest change, and every rule breaker who followed owes her a huge no. Number 1, Dolly Parton. Dolly Parton was a singer who wore glitter like armor, and she strongly carried her body like a brand. Behind the big hair and high heels, Dolly Parton built an empire with raw talent and sharper intelligence than anyone saw coming. All songs were full of longing, temptation, and midnight decisions. She teased, she winked, but she also wrote brilliantly. Dolly got married to Carl Dean. Her marriage to him was famously private, and it was an intentional decision. However, around her, rumors swirled about affairs with her co-stars and secret heartbreaks. However, she never confirmed anything. She didn't have to. She knew the power of image, and she used it. She played the dumb blonde while writing million-dollar songs and funding children's literacy through her imagination library. Dolly wasn't scandalous. She was strategic, and in a world that underestimated her for her looks, she built something no man could tear down, her legacy. Which of these women do you think is actually promiscuous? We eagerly anticipate your thoughts and opinions in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Before you go, watch the other videos on your screen.